Today's reading is from John chapter 10, verses 7 through 10. Therefore, Jesus said again, "Very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." The word of the Lord. You may be seated.
I grew up loving movies, and I find in movies often a truth-telling that is absent sometimes in the church. Sometimes I experience the telling in movies as being better at being prophetic when Christians are shrinking back. And in one area where this has been especially true over the last 20 years is movie makers, whether they be Christians or not, I don't know, because I don't know them personally. But they have been telling the truth about the chief rival god of our age. Do you know that every generation of Christians faces a chief rival god or multiple rival gods? If you read the story in the first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, you'll read that the chief rival god is Egypt itself, and the vision of being full, having a full belly and peace and security back in Egypt, even while you're in the midst of difficult times in your wilderness journey. There's really a spiritual application for all believers in this, in the sense that if you have cried out to Jesus, you have been delivered from your own personal slavery in Egypt. And for most of us, a prison of our own making. We've enslaved ourselves, but by the mighty right hand of God, as we're told through the powerful demonstration of the plagues and his power to deliver his people through the parting of the Red Sea, just like he does for us, this miracle of death to life happens when we cry out to the Lord for help. But even in that demonstration and all through that, the people wander through the desert, and every once in a while you see these stories where they go, you know, it was easier when we were back in Egypt. And some of you can relate to this next thing. We can't even help ourselves. Sometimes we idealize and look back on our past with rosy-colored glasses. We kind of forget why we cried out to Jesus in the first place. In the days of the early Christians, the chief rival gods were all around them, competing philosophies and competing religions that offered, in a sense, a different worldview than the worldview Jesus was offering. In the American experience, that has turned out to be very unique. The American church itself, especially here in the United States, has faced literally a unique chief rival god that we've offered back to the rest of the world. The American dream itself. And the American dream of its promises of health, wealth, and prosperity and freedom from suffering and pain. That if you just believe these things, everything will be okay. My friends, that's a false god. But today's chief rival god is on the front lines right now. Some of us may not even realize it. We're on the porch and we don't even realize it. We might even be inside the house and we don't realize it. And it's the chief rival god of virtual reality. Let me walk through with you about how movies have pointed out this problem. The first one is this. How many of you have seen this movie? Anybody know what it's from? That's Wall-E. Wall-E presents a dystopian future. Now, some of you hear the word dystopian and you think you kind of know what that means. If you know the word utopia, you have a better idea that dystopia is bad, utopia is good. But very specifically, dystopian future means a future that's messed up because of the unjust choices we're making today. In particular, Wall-E presents this future of the earth as a literal garbage pail. The earth has been destroyed by humanity. And whatever motive the creators had, let me tell you the part that I caught on to that I don't even think was the big part of what they intended to get across. The real dystopian future that is portrayed is that all the human beings are floating around in a spaceship orbiting the Earth, laying 24 hours a day on a lounge chair, immersed in a life of virtual reality. Wow. That can't possibly ever come to pass. Let me go a little further back in history. How about this? Do you know this movie? The Red Pill and the Blue Pill? The Matrix of 1999. They just made another one, by the way. Don't tell me, no spoiler alerts. I haven't seen it yet. And I'm a big fan. The Red Pill, it's about a future where humanity readily accepts living in a virtual computer program rather than the pain and suffering of living in the real world. And there's this weird dynamic of a mutual symbiotic relationship, if you will, or more to the point, the machines using human beings to generate electricity. It's really weird. I won't bother you with more details. Sorry for the spoiler alerts for any of you who haven't seen it. But the blue pill is the choice. You can stay here in this matrix, this computer program, and live a great life. And the red pill is you can escape it and get into the real world. And the crazy thing is that they say in the context of the movie, more than 99% of the subjects choose the blue pill. Now, lest you think, nah. Have any of you seen the Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma? Now, I had to delay this message by a month because I've been reading a lot of articles, watching some videos, reading a book that's written specifically on the challenge of the VR future with the church. And I was going to do this on February 2nd. I just need more time, so I moved it back a month. And one of the things that I spent time with in researching and preparing for this message was the Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma. I actually put the reference in your notes on your sermon notes page. And what's unique about The Social Dilemma is that it was created by people from within the big tech community. You know, a lot of documentaries are produced by people outside of the thing they're criticizing. These people were a part of actually creating it. Developers, executives, and others who point out what big tech knows: the effect of technology on the human brain. And when you watch it, for those of you who are old enough, or if you read it in a history book, you'll know that you're living through the reality that was true back when big tobacco denied the effect of tobacco and nicotine on the human body. Because big tech is denying what they know. But here's the thing they point out that will really put the fear of God in all of you who are parents and grandparents. These people who help develop this stuff do not put tech in the hands of their kids. Now, if you're older than 40, and I hate to admit, I'm now older than... Can't do it. You need to recognize that anybody who's younger than 40 grew up in a different world than the world those of you who grew up older than 40. There's a huge fault line of technology change and worldview and the chief rival God. So if you're older than 40, this might not always connect with you, but the concept of the chief rival God should. There's always something competing for your attention and offering you a different vision of life. Take, for example, the movie Inception. Some of you have seen that. There's a scene where the main characters walk through a room where people lay on mats all day long taking intravenous drugs and living in their dream life 24 hours a day. And one of the characters says, why do they do this? And the guy who runs the cafe says, because the dream has become more real for them than reality. And we all know that this worldview is being offered by the great American savior called Big Pharma, where we're all offered drugs as a vision and a future reality. Now, I want you to hear me say this very clearly. Everybody, before you hear me say, Greg said don't take medications. I didn't say that. Medications under the direction of a doctor. And let me tell you, even doctors aren't supposed to prescribe their own medicines. How many of you know that's true? The rest of you should. This vision of a reality that's drug-induced is no future at all. And yet it's here. My friends, do you know why? Let's be honest. Do you know why the homeless crisis continues to grow out of control? It's because of a drug-induced stupor that people are in every single day. Talk to anybody in law enforcement or anybody who actually works with people on the front lines. Don't listen to the nonsense and the lies that we're told about homelessness. After years of being on the front lines of it and seeing it, talking to people who actually do it. Now, here's the last thing, this alternate worldview. Look at this movie. Some of you know this one from 2018, just a few years ago. What's that? Ready Player One. And I want you to be sure I am not recommending you watch any of these. Okay? What's interesting about Ready Player One is the biggest city in the world in 2045 is Canton, Ohio. I don't think that's going to happen. But here's the real thing where I think the prophecy is scarily going to be true sooner rather than later. You see what he's wearing on his face? They're called VR glasses. Facebook has produced VR glasses called Oculus glasses that even the poorest among us can afford. And the thing in the future, Ready Player One, is everybody has VR glasses. And they all live in a virtual reality world where they can do whatever they want. Literally everything and anything they want. And what's interesting is this particular picture captures the duality so clearly of that dystopian future. His home is a cargo container. And not only his experience, but every single person, the world is just portrayed as being a world of squalor and absolute poverty, which is why everybody puts on the glasses to live in a virtual reality world where they can do whatever they want. Facebook recently unveiled its vision for the future. And I want to make it clear, I'm not painting Facebook as the devil. Just another one of the examples of an alternate worldview, and there will be more. There will always be a chief rival god. Here's the current chief rival god's invitation. It's called the metaverse. And the metaverse is a transcendent, next level, and all-encompassing world in virtual reality. And it's already here. Lest you think this whole VR thing and the invitation of the worldview doesn't affect you, I just want to ask in all sincerity, and don't raise your hands, is there anyone in this room, or they already lose if they're watching, anyone in this room who doesn't have a computer? And you're like, well, I don't have a computer. Like a young person's like, I don't have a computer. You got a phone in your pocket. 99% of the world has taken the blue pill in our culture. We live on the front porch of this worldview. And last I checked, we're not Amish. Why do I say that? Because the Amish chose to live in the 18th century with the technology they had then and not move into the future. All of us continue to consume technology as soon as it becomes available and we can afford it. Let me read a quote for you. This is near the end of the message. So if you want to find the quote, it's from Clint Little. He said, "We should not be surprised when human beings corrupt a new technology and use it to rebel against God and sin against their neighbor. This corruption has happened from the beginning. In Genesis 11, mankind came together and used their amazing ingenuity to build a tower reaching into the heavens, but its purpose was to oppose God and flaunt their power in His face rather than honor Him as Creator. Many will use virtual reality and electronics to further their sin and rebellion against God." You see, when Jesus says, "I've come that you'd have life and have it to the full," the reason this is a difficult saying, and the reason why we question, did Jesus really say that, or what did He mean by that, is because it's hard to understand in the face of the chief rival God. The chief rival God is offering a vision of life and an experience of life that is not what Jesus is talking about. And the big reason we have so much difficulty with this, and especially those who follow the Lord and say, "But I'm having difficulty. I'm not having life and life to the full. Life is hard." Did Jesus really say that? Did Jesus really mean that? Is because we all suffer from the same disease, that sin nature that was true at the beginning of the human experience. And the biggest sin that human beings have committed and that we continue to perpetuate in our own sin is that we continually try to define life and a world of our own without God as the one who's in charge. How do Christians do it who've surrendered their lives to Christ? How do we continue to sin this way? It's very easy. It's very simple, actually. It's the sin of trying to fit Jesus into our life rather than recognizing we need to fit our life into His. So we adopt false beliefs. We hold on to old negative views. We hear teaching of Scripture that our itching ears want to hear, but simply not grounded in a true reading of Scripture. And then we wonder why we're not experiencing the abundant life. So in the passage we just read, Jesus says in verse 7, "I am the gate for the sheep." And in context, the people in His day would have totally understood what He meant. In our day, we might be in danger of picturing a swinging gate, but what He meant is, in those days, often sheep enclosures had just an opening, a narrow opening, and they would herd the sheep into the safe area, and the shepherd would sleep in that opening and would literally be the gate. And if you combine this with your knowledge of the ancient song, Psalm 23, the shepherd was ready with his staff and his rod to fight off all those who would come to try and rob his precious ones of life. No one was getting past the gate if he didn't want them past the gate. The enemy would be kept at bay. And here's the thing about Jesus in verse 7. Notice again, "I'm the gate for the sheep. I'm the gateway to life. I'm a vision of abundant life," because we kind of know where verse 10 goes. You want to experience real life? I am the way. We know, for those of you who read a little further in the story, Jesus claims not to just be someone who points to the truth. He claims to be the truth in the flesh. Let me read the quote. He didn't come to merely say that you can know the truth through Him or to discover new things. He said He could be the truth incarnate in the flesh. He did not merely point the way to God. He claimed to be the way to God. That's what it means. The entry point to abundant life is a person, is a relationship. It's a life of living His way. A life of surrender, a life of repentance, a life of recognizing I need Him in charge of me because me in charge of me doesn't work. I've tried the God of my own life thing and found it wanting. In verse 8, he continues on. He says, all who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them, the true believers. And we could add now, all who came after him, who present anything that competes with his teaching, are thieves and robbers. Anything that doesn't complement Jesus' picture of reality is a thief and a robber. To entertain these false truths in our lives creates a conflict at the core, to borrow a computer term, at the core of our operating system. When your computer in the real world gets conflicting information, some of you who are older remember this better because you would literally get the error messages. Now the app just stops working and you just restart it. Boom, oh, fixed. Back in the old days, it was, whew. You know, the first thing they'd always ask us dummies, is it plugged in? So many times that was actually the answer. Oops, got unplugged. Okay. But we live in a new world now where we're not plugged in all the time, at least physically. Jesus claims to be the way where you can experience the pastures, the quiet waters, where your soul can really be restored. Everything else is a thief and a liar. Part of the preparation for this process, and I told you I extended it a little bit, has been literally burning coals on my head. I have a game that I love, and I've loved it for like 30 years. And the older I get, you know, I don't know why I happen to be in a season where I was playing this game again, because I put it away for times. And my wife will come up to me and she'll say, do you realize how long you've been playing that game? I'll say, like 15 minutes. It's crazy about it, and I got to thinking about it. It was almost like a buzzkill, if you will. I was prepping for the sermon. The only parts of the game that I even get that endorphin rush on now is when I start at the very beginning and when I win. I always win. Do you know why I always win? Because unlike real life, if it starts going bad, I just turn it off. Start a new world. And I get this very quick endorphin rush right at the end, and nothing like the beginning. And you know, it's interesting, like they point out in Social Dilemma, it's the same as drugs. Your brain has the same reaction as opium, just on a smaller scale. And it's why they don't let their own children, these people who know about the dangers of tech, they don't let their own children even play with tech because they know the brain forms on the tech. And what's funny is, I didn't grow up with it, and it still has that effect on me in a certain degree. What if you grew up with it and you don't know any better? The good news is what Jesus says in verses 9 and 10 gives us hope. So verse 9, Jesus says, I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. Doesn't matter if you've gone back to Egypt. Doesn't matter if you've bought into the lies of other religions and philosophies. Doesn't matter if you've continued to live with the lies of the American dream and its false promises of health, wealth, and prosperity. Doesn't matter if you've gotten lost in the web of a matrix. Jesus saves. And Jesus changes us from the inside out. Nothing can stop the rewiring work of the Holy Spirit if we surrender to the work of the Holy Spirit. And I can tell you this, my days of handling tech, each day of handling tech is, I can always notice the days are easier to handle and resist some of the temptations of tech sucking the life out of me when I've spent time with Jesus in the morning, in the quiet, before the day starts. It is amazing how the anxiety and the frustration and the ability to even sit quietly without having to look at my phone It's so much easier if I start my day with the Lord. Why? Because he came to give life and life to the full. I don't want to pretend that I've arrived on this deal. I want to point out there is only one solution that I've learned. The one who gives life and everything else that takes it. In verse 9, when Jesus said, "Whoever enters through me will be saved," it literally means anyone. Radical inclusion, but not on your terms. That's where we make the mistake. I want to be loved by God, but I want him to love me the way I am. God says, no, I love you, but I'm the one who needs to be on the throne of your life. Now verse 10. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that they may have life. Listen, anyone that points to anything, like I said, that competes with Jesus' vision is a thief, a robber, and a liar. And what they're pointing to is that sin of self-autonomy. You know what's interesting about sin? The reason why we entertain it, sometimes innocently without knowing about it, the reason why we go down that pathway is because it's pleasurable for a season. It gives us something. It gives us a temporary euphoria. But it robs us of life. Sin would have fewer takers if its consequences were felt more immediately. And I heard someone else say this, and I've only repeated it as often as it becomes appropriate, but sin will always take us farther than we want to go, keep us longer than we want to stay, and cost us more than we want to pay. And these alternate worldviews present a lifestyle of sin, the sin of self-autonomy without God at the center of the throne of our lives. So when Jesus says in John chapter 10, he says, that thief comes to steal from you, verse 10, he says, but I've come that you would have life and life abundantly. So many Christians miss that because they judge abundant life based on their external circumstances, because that's what the American dream has taught us. But the abundant life is not a promise of the absence of pain and suffering, as we've looked at in so many of the difficult sayings that Jesus teaches on. The abundant life is that no matter what you face in this life, it is the promise of life with God's very presence within you. Lots of people love Philippians 4:13. Lots of fighters and MMA guys, they love to have Philippians 4:13 tatted on their bodies. I can knock you out with the God who gives me strength. I can choke you out because God gives me strength. I'm being a little facetious. But we can fall into the same ditch if we're not careful. You know what? God will give me what I want and strength for what I need to face and accomplish my dreams for my life rather than God's dreams for my life. It's not what it says. Notice verse 12. Paul says, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty and want. In other words, he says, it doesn't matter what my external circumstances are. I have learned that true contentment is finding the life Jesus promised on the inside. Peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness. These are the things that Jesus promised. And it comes with him being the Lord of our lives. This VR reality is something we're all going to have to learn to live with. Like I said, we're not Amish. So what are the challenges? How does VR steal life? And some of you might be thinking, well, I'm not into VR. I don't put those goggles on. Like I said, if you have a phone and you look at it, you're in VR. You enter into a virtual reality world every time you interface with that screen. If you're a gamer, you live in VR. If you get lost in an app, you live in VR. So how does virtual reality steal life from us? Well, number one, it is the hook of constant curiosity and escape. And anyone who's ever lost themselves in a game or an app or social media or chased TikTok videos, anybody in here? Or followed down the rabbit's hole of YouTube videos, you know about this. Anyone who's had a relationship with Netflix over the last 24 months as a way to cope with the fear and difficulty of life, you know what I'm talking about. It's sad that Netflix knows us so well. It says, you watched this one bad show previously. How about this show? It's just like it. I don't know that personally. I just heard about it. How about number two? It's the empty world of virtual reality. I mentioned to you my gaming thing. Man, between those two moments of euphoria is a grind. I enjoy playing it, don't get me wrong. But at the end of it, I recognize this, like I said, as I'm getting older, it's just empty. It doesn't fill me up. It doesn't meet me at the place I need the most. And when I substitute it for what's best, it has the opposite effect and really leaves me emptier. The third thing of tech stealing life is personal relationships with a machine. And what do we mean by that? What it means is that you'd rather interact with people through a machine rather than deal with people themselves, because people are difficult. And some of you are more difficult than others. You know who you are. And I'll just test every single one of you. And I bet you I'm going to get 90% on this. You don't have to raise your hands because I know I'm right already. How many of you, when your phone rings, let it go to voicemail before you decide whether or not you're going to call back? Because anybody who knows me really well would text me rather than call me. You're living primarily with a machine. Back in the old days, it was an adventure. You had to dial like this. And when the phone rang, you had no idea who you were going to get. Hello? Here's where it gets really bad. When people find others who have a similar worldview as they do interacting through a machine, and they're led to believe that they're okay because now they've caught on to somebody else's perversity, and because they live through that machine together, they could tell each other lies and develop a life together separate of God. It's why people find through the internet all manner of other people who have the same perverse thinking as they do and think that it's normal. The fourth one is the risk of tryst, and I'll only say this. Tryst literally means hookup. How many lives, marriages, and relationships have been destroyed through the virtual reality hookup? And then finally, pornography. My friends, many of you have heard me give testimony to this. I struggled with that as a young man, boyhood to manhood, pornography. And I look back and I think, oh God, how would I have ever dealt with developing that addiction in the virtual reality world? Scary. On your sermon notes page and during communion, I'm just going to ask for the slide to be put up several times. There are 5 commitments that you can make, 5 ways that deal with each one of those risks of VR. And it's going to speak to every one of us differently. And I want you to remember this vision of life that Jesus presents. He presents life and life to the full when we surrender it to Him. That we can face anything with Him in charge. And the good news is this promise is not just a promise for the here and now, it's a promise forever. There will be a new heaven and a new earth. And so Jesus says, listen, you need bread to live. Everybody knows that. I'm the bread of life. And you need blood for relationship with the Father. Because there is no forgiveness of sin without the shedding of blood, which is why Jesus was crucified on the cross. And when you take that cup and you believe that Jesus died for you and your sin of rebellion, he promises you life and life to the full. Not on your terms, on his. And it's a gift to whoever would enter through the gate pin. Radical inclusion and the offer of radical transformation. All of you are welcome at this table. But please know it does require some self-examination, as we're told in Scripture. If there's anything you need to deal with before you take communion, do that. Especially if it means dealing with the Lord. As you take communion and you feel ready, on your rows, exit to your left. Come up, receive this gift that Jesus prepared for you, and just kind of return around the right side. And don't be in a hurry, don't rush, don't worry if it's too crowded, just wait. Everybody will get a chance to be served. But Jesus did this for you. Life is experienced in the wilderness depending on the daily provision of Jesus. Amen? Amen. Lord God, come and meet each one of us where we need to experience this truth. Where we need to hear this truth penetrate our hearts, our souls, our minds. God, we are constantly having a chief rival God, and for many of us it's just different things, but all of it has one thing in common: a chief rival God that's presenting a different vision of life. God, have mercy on us and give us eyes to see the truth. That the truth is a person, and it's you, Jesus. As we share in this time of communion, come and minister to our hearts. Create in us clean hearts. Renew right spirits in us, that we would get our minds and our hearts right. That we would experience life and life to the full. That we would recognize we could face anything, any hardship, any difficulty, whether things are good or whether things are bad, because you give us strength from the inside, Lord Jesus, by your Holy Spirit. Come, Lord, for all things are now ready. In your beautiful name, amen.